Hi, my name is Joel Foreman, and I work for Slalom Consulting. And I'm going to show you a couple demos today about what you can do with hosting multi-tenant websites inside of Windows Azure in a single deployment. So let me start by sharing out. So I have a solution. It's just a simple Windows Azure project with one web application as the single web role inside. And Windows Azure provides a way, if I look at the service definition file, of having multiple sites defined. And so you can see right now I have a sites collection, and I have one site named web, and that's mapping to the web role inside of this solution. What I can do is I can add another site to this. And we'll call this Web 2, and I can give it a physical directory on my machine. I can show you that that's going to map to right here. That just represents another different web application on my machine. And I'm going to give this a different host header. And that's how IIS will direct traffic to this different website as opposed to the default standard one that's on here. So I'm going to run this in the Windows Azure emulator. And while that's starting up, I'm going to go check out. I can show you guys if I go to drivers, etc., hosts, we can take a look at what I have to do just to successfully map that new host header that I added to localhost, so we'll be able to see that. So here's the sample website, the first one that you saw, and it's running on the default location for the emulator. But if I come over to a new tab, and I still want to run on port 81, websf.com, we should see momentarily this other sample website that I have. So this is how we're seeing, if we crack open IIS locally on my machine, let's refresh, we'll see we have two sites that the emulator mounted, and they control traffic to web and web 2, which conveniently maps to web and web 2, the sites in my site collection and my service definition. So if I were to publish this application, these applications, it would package up both of those and deploy them to the cloud, and I could specify how many instances that I wanted, and great. But there's one kind of downside to this approach, and that is that I am definitely coupling these two sites in their deployment. I wouldn't, if I wanted to change one of these, I'd have to publish both of them, and that's not ideal in every scenario. So there's another solution that I saw a couple weeks ago that I really liked, and I saw this solution on the Cloud Cover blog that I follow, the video blog, and they talked about a solution developed by a guy named Nathan Totten, who came up with a way to be able to do multi-tenant sites in Windows Azure and deploy them independently. And I'm going to highlight that solution as well and talk about a couple extra things that you can do. So, and if you go to his blog, you can download the source code, which I've done. Here's a solution of his, and it's called, it's basically this multi-tenant solution, and it has a cloud project and a single web role. And really this web role is empty. There's no content there. What is there is some code that executes on start and while this web role is running, and it runs this web deploy engine, which looks to blob storage in a specific container for zipped up websites. And if it finds one that it doesn't know about, it can use IIS APIs to create a new app pool and website in IIS on that web role for it. So, and then periodically, every 30 seconds, it's going to pull and look at that container and see if there's a new site deployed. And if it is, it simply mounts it for us. So let me go ahead and go out to the management portal, and I've deployed this tenant manager, and I have enabled remote desktop so we can go into the instance and see what's going on. So I'm going to connect. While it's connecting, let's come back and let's make a website that we want to deploy on the fly. So I have this other, just a simple MVC website that I've created. And let's change the name of something so we can definitely see this. So we'll call it Tenant Site 2, very cool. So now I'm really not operating in the context of a cloud application at all. I'm just an ASP.NET MVC web application. And I'm going to publish. And I'm just publishing to the file system. And you can see publish started, publish succeeded. Let me come out to the file system here where I published. And I published to this folder called site. And this solution by convention expects that your content is going to be inside a folder called site. And all I need to do now is just zip this guy up and give them a name. And the name is important because it actually uses the name of your zip file as the host header that it's going to apply in IIS for your site. And that's how you will be able to access it. So I'm going to come out to, and if I look at using a storage management tool, I'm using Cloud Storage Studio. I'm connected up to a storage account in the cloud, and I have a container called Sites. And in it, I have one site that I've already deployed. And if we go out there to the remote instance, and I check out IIS, we will see that there's two sites currently running in IIS. One, the kind of empty web project that we just looked at, that tenant manager that I called it, that really runs in the background. There's no content there, but it's checking and pulling blob storage to see if there's any new sites to mount. And then there's the one site that it did find, site1.sites.slalom.com, which maps up to the zip file that we will look at. I got to figure out how do I get this. So let me stop sharing for a second so I can minimize this. And let me start sharing again. Sorry for the hiccup. That maps to, you are back. This maps to, again, site1.sites.slalom.com, the zip file that sits inside this storage account. So let me go ahead, and we successfully published that new site to here. We zipped it up. So all I need to do now is upload this to the container. So I select that, upload. It's done. I refresh here, and you can see that the new site has been added to the container. And the next time that my tenant manager polls and refreshes, it will mount this new site. What's really great about this solution is that I still get load balancing and scalability that the Windows Azure provides. For example, if I was to come in here to my deployment and increase the number of instances, then let's think about what would happen. Let's say if I change instances from 2 to 3. Well, when that third one starts up, it's going to check that same central location, that container that has my zipped up sites, and it's going to mount all of them there. And the load balancer is still going to balance requests across my 3 instances. So I'm effectively able to scale groups of sites, not just separate single sites deployed on their own. And I really love that concept. Also, that tenant manager code could easily be updated to check the timestamp on these blobs, and you could effectively use that to upgrade sites, not just deploy or decommission sites. So now that that has finished, let me come back here, and I can see site1.sites.slalom.com, great, and site2.sites.solemn.com. Tenant site 2, very cool. So there you see that I easily as quickly deployed a new site, didn't have to do anything with Windows Azure, and this site that I actually worked on wasn't even a cloud project at all. I was able to publish it in a very common way, or common comfortable mechanism that I'm used to inside of Visual Studio. Let's finally come back and check out the instance, and if I refresh here, you'll see that there is site2.sites.solemn.com. That code that runs inside of that empty web role successfully picked it up and mounted it. So again, I think that is a great example of how you can effectively come up with creative ways to do things with Windows Azure that really lets you do a lot of cool things. You could, if you had 5, 6 sites, small microsites, you could group them together, really save a lot of money, and still achieve scalability with the Windows Azure platform.